Welcome to Celfa Leader Circle, the channel where we explore profound topics to draw lessons applicable to our personal and professional lives. Today, we dive into a captivating and often taboo theme, prostitution, a profession filled with controversies but also revealing social, economic, and human aspects. In this video, we will go beyond preconceived ideas to explore the financial realities of this sector. You will discover how prostitution contributes to the economy in several European countries with astonishing figures, and we will reveal how much a prostitute can earn on average in countries where this activity is legalized. At the same time, we will examine personal and social impacts, while clearly distinguishing voluntary prostitution from forms of exploitation such as pimping and human trafficking. Join us on this journey of analysis and reflection, where we will explore strategies to overcome social stigmas, understand the dynamics of a double life, and even draw lessons for enlightened leadership, ready to tackle complex issues with open-mindedness and respect. Welcome to Celfa Leader Circle, where charisma, leadership, and personal growth come together to enrich our vision of the world. Don't forget to click the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to our channel to stay connected with inspiring personal development and leadership content. Prostitution is often referred to as the oldest profession in the world, and this designation stems from evidence of the existence of the horizontal trade since the earliest human civilizations. From temple services in ancient Mesopotamia, a region now located between Iraq and Syria, to public houses in ancient Rome, prostitution has always been a reality that transcends cultures and societies. But what exactly is prostitution? In its simplest sense, prostitution refers to the provision of sexual services in exchange for payment. Individuals sell or trade their bodies for financial or material compensation. This definition already reflects the social complexity of this subject, as prostitution is far more than a simple economic transaction. It is often a mirror of society itself. The legal status of prostitution, an overview. The legal situation of prostitution varies considerably from one country to another and demonstrates how differently societies approach this issue. In Europe, we find a wide range of regulations. In Germany, for example, prostitution is legal and highly regulated, meaning that sex work is officially recognized as a profession, and sex workers have access to social and health services. In contrast, Spain takes a more tolerant stance, although prostitution is not officially regulated, leaving sex workers with less legal protection. In France, however, prostitution is not illegal, but since 2016, clients, that is, those who solicit services from prostitutes, can face criminal charges. This marks a significant difference from the German approach and highlights the diversity of strategies for addressing this issue within Europe. In Africa, legislation is highly heterogeneous, ranging from total bans in countries like Nigeria to partially tolerated practices in South Africa. However, social and cultural stigmas often make it difficult for prostitutes to gain social recognition or access legal protection. In the United States, prostitution is illegal at the federal level, with some exceptions, such as in the state of Nevada, where prostitution is permitted and regulated in certain rural counties. However, in most other states, prostitution and visiting brothels are punishable by law, often driving the activity underground and exposing participants to associated risks. In Latin America, Canada, and Asia, the legal situations are equally diverse. For instance, in Mexico, prostitution is tolerated in certain zones and allows for some regulation, whereas in Brazil, prostitution is not punished but is also not fully legalized. In Canada, a similar approach to France is followed, where clients are sanctioned while the work of prostitutes is tolerated. The Middle East, on the other hand, is a very restrictive region in this regard, where prostitution is strictly prohibited and prosecuted in almost all countries. Cultural and religious norms in this region not only condemn prostitution but also impose strict rules regarding interpersonal relationships and gender roles. These differences in legal frameworks show that prostitution occupies varied roles in the eyes of the societies and cultures involved, from an accepted profession to a necessary evil and even an absolute taboo. Thus, we observe that prostitution is judged differently around the world, with factors such as religion, culture, history, and politics all playing a role. Prostitution has an ancient and complex history, dating back thousands of years. It is documented in some of the earliest known civilizations, and its existence reflects a complex relationship between sexuality, economy, and society. By studying its history, we can understand how the perception of prostitution has evolved over time and across continents. Antiquity and the Biblical Era. In biblical texts and ancient Middle Eastern cultures, prostitution was a common phenomenon, though perceived differently depending on the time and place. In ancient Mesopotamia, for instance, there were forms of sacred or ritual prostitution where women participated in sexual rites in temples dedicated to fertility goddesses such as Ishtar. These practices were associated with religious beliefs and seen as a way to ensure the prosperity and fertility of the people. In the Old Testament, prostitution is mentioned several times, often from a moral perspective, with a connotation of sin but without outright prohibition. Here are some relevant examples. 1. Leviticus chapter 19 verse 29. Do not degrade your daughter by making her a prostitute, or the land will turn to prostitution and be filled with wickedness. This verse warns against prostitution within the community, emphasizing social and moral consequences. 2. Proverbs chapter 6 verse 26. For a prostitute can be had for a loaf of bread, but another man's wife preys on your very life. This passage highlights the dangers of prostitution and immoral behavior. 3. Deuteronomy chapter 23 verses 17 to 18. No Israelite woman shall be a shrine prostitute, nor shall any Israelite man be a shrine prostitute. You must not bring the earnings of a female prostitute or of a male prostitute into the house of the Lord your God to pay any vow, because the Lord your God detests them both. This text specifically prohibits sacred prostitution, which was practiced in some neighboring pagan cultures. By contrast, in ancient Greece, prostitution was regulated, and some women were hetairai, educated courtesans who accompanied influential men to gatherings and banquets. Greek society recognized a social hierarchy within the world of prostitution, distinguishing hetairai from street prostitutes. Ancient Rome and the Middle Ages. Prostitution was also widespread in ancient Rome, where it was legal and regulated. Prostitutes had to register and were subject to taxes. The Romans considered prostitution a necessary evil, allowing them to protect Roman families and channel sexual urges outside of marriage. Official establishments, or lupanars, housed prostitutes and their clients, often located in socially accepted areas. During the Middle Ages, however, prostitution took on an increasingly negative connotation due to the growing influence of the church. Although brothels were tolerated in many European cities, the Catholic Church condemned prostitution as a grave sin. However, some clerics and theologians saw prostitution as a lesser evil, a solution to channel sexual desires and thus avoid more serious sins like adultery. In major cities like Paris, specific districts, known as clépierres, were reserved for prostitutes, but they remained stigmatized. Modern era and colonization. Starting from the Renaissance, prostitution continued to be tolerated but under increased surveillance. With the rise of nation-states, European governments began to more strictly regulate brothels, particularly to combat venereal diseases. In the 19th century, prostitution became a topic of political and social debate in many European countries. Strict regulations, such as the system of morality policing in France, were implemented to monitor prostitutes, subjecting them to regular medical examinations to limit the spread of sexually transmitted diseases. During colonization, perceptions of prostitution were exported to colonized territories. Colonial powers imposed their own norms and often created designated districts for prostitution to serve the needs of their troops and expatriate workers. Caribbean and Guyana. Prostitution on plantations. In slave societies, many enslaved women were forced into sexual relations with colonists or overseers. These practices, though informal, reflected an institutionalized form of sexual exploitation. Colonial Africa. Designated districts. In cities like Dakar, Senegal, and Brazzaville, Congo, colonial authorities established specific neighborhoods where prostitution was tolerated to meet the needs of colonial soldiers. These zones were often associated with significant exploitation of local women. Case of the Seigneurs in Senegal. The Seigneurs were African women who formed relationships with European colonists in exchange for social and economic privileges. While this was not prostitution in the strict sense, it reflected a dynamic of exploitation in a colonial context. This European influence helped change local perceptions and added an economic dependency dimension, as many local women were forced into prostitution to survive in these colonies. '20th and 21st centuries, changing perspectives. The 20th century was marked by radical changes in the perception of prostitution. At the beginning of the century, moral reform movements called for the abolition of prostitution, and several countries banned brothels. In the 1970s, with the rise of feminist movements, prostitution became a central topic of debate. Some feminist currents view prostitution as the exploitation of women, while others see it as a personal choice and a form of empowerment. In Europe, different regulatory models emerged. Germany adopted a liberal approach, legalizing and regulating prostitution to grant sex workers rights. In Sweden, however, an abolitionist model was adopted, where prostitution itself is not penalized, but the purchase of sexual services is illegal, targeting clients instead. In other parts of the world, perceptions also evolved. In the United States, prostitution remains illegal in most states, while Nevada tolerates it in certain rural areas. In Africa, laws vary widely from country to country, and prostitution remains heavily influenced by cultural and religious norms. In Asia, regulation is equally diverse, with countries like Thailand tolerating prostitution unofficially, although it remains officially illegal. Today, in the 21st century, prostitution continues to be a topic of intense debate. Technological changes, particularly with the advent of the internet, have transformed the landscape of prostitution, making services more accessible but also posing new challenges in terms of safety and protecting the rights of sex workers. In the debate on prostitution, it is essential to distinguish two distinct realities: voluntary and regulated prostitution, and forms of exploitation such as pimping and human trafficking, which often involve minors. These two phenomena must never be conflated, as their dynamics and implications are radically different. Voluntary and regulated prostitution. Voluntary prostitution involves adults who choose, for various reasons, to engage in this profession in contexts where it is legal and regulated. In such situations, sex workers can benefit from rights, social protections, and an environment governed by law. This model, seen in countries like Germany or the Netherlands, aims to protect the health, safety, and dignity of those involved while reducing risks associated with clandestine activity. Pimping and human trafficking. Pimping and human trafficking represent severe forms of exploitation where individuals, often vulnerable, are forced into prostitution through coercion, threats, or deception. These criminal practices are blatant violations of human rights and are condemned in nearly every country in the world. Human trafficking, particularly involving children, is an alarming reality. According to the United Nations, millions of people fall victim to this trade every year, with criminal networks exploiting individuals for financial gain. This exploitation, whether physical, psychological, or economic, destroys lives and perpetuates cycles of poverty and marginalization. Why this distinction matters. Confusing voluntary prostitution with exploitation blurs the debate and hinders understanding of potential solutions. Regulated prostitution can be an individual choice, while exploitation is always imposed violence. This distinction is fundamental to addressing these issues clearly and proposing appropriate responses. Public policies must firmly combat pimping and trafficking by prosecuting criminal networks and protecting victims. At the same time, it is necessary to create environments where individuals who voluntarily choose prostitution can work safely and with dignity, free from stigma. Making this distinction enables an informed and balanced approach to a complex subject. As leaders, it is our responsibility to promote nuanced discussions, firmly condemn exploitation, and support individuals in their choices while working to create a more just and respectful world. This clarity is essential to build solutions that protect the most vulnerable while respecting individual freedoms. As part of our analysis of prostitution's effects on society, it is crucial to consider not only the challenges and controversies, but also the often overlooked positive effects that emerge from this sector. Like any field, there are aspects that contribute in one way or another to society as a whole. Here is a look at the positive effects through three specific angles: economic, social, and health. Economic benefits: contribution to the economy through taxes and employment. The economic impact of prostitution is significant, particularly in countries where it is legalized and regulated, such as Germany. In these contexts, prostitution is recognized as a profession, subject to taxation, thereby contributing directly to the national budget. In Germany, for example, the sector's annual turnover is estimated to generate several billion euros, actively contributing to tax revenues and fostering job creation, not only for sex workers but also for support staff, security services, and administration. By legalizing and regulating this activity, some countries successfully transform a once marginalized sector into an official source of income for the state. This also redirects funds from this sector to essential public services, including education and healthcare, indirectly benefiting society as a whole. Social aspects: a support system for those without alternatives. For many individuals, prostitution represents a last resort, especially in difficult economic contexts. In some cases, it offers a viable alternative for individuals marginalized from the traditional labor market due to education, social status, or personal circumstances. Many men and women find in this sector an opportunity to support their families and achieve a certain level of economic stability. By providing a source of income, prostitution allows some people to maintain a sense of dignity and autonomy, even in challenging situations. This represents a social role that, while ambiguous, can offer prospects and hope for social reintegration, especially if adequate support structures are available. Access to healthcare services, prevention and medical care for sex workers. Another important positive effect of the legalization and regulation of prostitution is increased access to healthcare and prevention programs. In countries where prostitution is legalized, sex workers often benefit from regular health checkups and preventive services against sexually transmitted diseases. This helps reduce risks not only for the workers themselves but also for the entire population, as prevention and treatment are carried out systematically and in a controlled manner. Moreover, these services also raise awareness among sex workers about the risks of their activity and help them adopt safer practices. Associations and support programs can then focus on risk reduction and the mental health of workers, thereby improving their quality of life and overall well-being. Negative effects of prostitution. Continuing our analysis of prostitution's effects on society, it is equally important to examine its negative aspects, as they reveal the complex challenges faced by sex workers and society at large. These negative effects touch on social, security, and health dimensions, raising essential questions about how society might address these issues. Stigmatization and discrimination, social exclusion and prejudice against sex workers. Stigmatization and discrimination are among the main problems sex workers face, even in countries where prostitution is legal. Society often views prostitution through a moral lens, perpetuating prejudices that exclude and isolate sex workers. This social exclusion affects not only the workers themselves, but also their families and loved ones who bear the consequences of these biases. Due to this stigmatization, many sex workers encounter obstacles when trying to re-enter the traditional labor market or access services such as housing, education, or healthcare. This societal rejection reinforces cycles of marginalization and reduces opportunities for those who wish to leave the profession, often trapping individuals in precarious situations. Safety risks, violence, and exploitation in the sector. Sex workers face heightened safety risks. In many cases, especially in regions where prostitution is illegal or unregulated, they become easy targets for traffickers and aggressors. Working conditions in this sector are often dangerous, with physical, emotional, and sexual violence being common, particularly for those operating clandestinely without legal protection. In some instances, human trafficking networks exploit and force individuals, including minors, into prostitution. This exploitation is a severe violation of human rights and underscores the dangers of the sector when it is not regulated. Sex workers are often left without recourse, unable to report abuses out of fear of legal repercussions or retaliation from their aggressors. Mental and physical health issues impact on sex workers' well-being. The mental and physical health of sex workers is also significantly affected by their activities. Mentally, workers may experience stress, anxiety, and even mental health disorders such as depression due to social isolation, stigmatization, and precarious working conditions. This constant stress, tied to the risk of violence and social judgment, leads many sex workers to experience a gradual deterioration in their psychological well-being. Physically, sex workers are at an increased risk of contracting sexually transmitted diseases, particularly in contexts where health resources are limited and prevention measures are insufficient. Working conditions, often nocturnal and urban, add risks related to physical fatigue, substance abuse, and exhaustion, which can have devastating long-term effects on their health. .4 global reach and some numbers on prostitution. Statistically, prostitution is a widely prevalent phenomenon. In many major cities worldwide, there are numerous brothels, streets, and establishments where individuals offer their services. According to estimates by the World Health Organization, millions of people work in prostitution globally, and billions of dollars flow through this profession annually. For example, in Germany, the estimated annual turnover of prostitution reaches several billion euros. Here is an estimation of annual turnover from prostitution in 6 countries, listed in ascending order. 1. Greece. Prostitution is legal and regulated. While precise data is limited, the sector generates several hundred million euros annually, contributing to the national economy. 2. Belgium. Belgium allows and regulates prostitution, particularly in zones like Antwerp's red light district. The annual turnover is estimated at approximately 870 million euros. 3. Switzerland. Prostitution has been legal since 1942 and is strictly regulated. The sector generates around 3.5 billion euros annually. 4. Netherlands. With its famous red light district in Amsterdam, the Netherlands has legalized and regulated prostitution. The annual turnover is estimated at around 4.4 billion euros. 5. Australia. In certain Australian states, prostitution is legal and regulated. The sector generates approximately 6 billion euros annually. 6. Germany. Germany legalized prostitution in 2002, making it a highly regulated sector. The annual turnover is estimated at approximately 14.6 billion euros. 7. France. In France, the annual turnover of prostitution is estimated at around 3.2 billion euros. This figure primarily includes revenues generated from clandestine activities, complicating the precise evaluation of its overall economic impact. Regarding the average income of a legal prostitute in Germany, estimates vary depending on factors such as location, types of services offered, and hours worked. On average, a prostitute can earn between €10,000 and €20,000 per month. However, these figures can vary significantly depending on individual circumstances. As part of our exploration of prostitution, it is also essential to analyze how this sector affects individuals who lead a double life, combining this activity with a traditional job. This particular lifestyle imposes challenges on emotional well-being, time management, and personal relationships, raising important questions for those juggling multiple identities. Stress and burnout, the burden of a double life. The need to maintain confidentiality is one of the main sources of stress for sex workers who also hold more traditional jobs. Leading a double life requires constantly hiding a significant part of oneself, which can cause considerable stress. This constant tension between the obligations of a conventional job and the demands of prostitution can quickly lead to burnout. Those affected often experience psychological exhaustion due to the pressure of keeping their secret, even from colleagues, friends, and family. In addition to mental strain, the weight of guilt or shame engendered by social stigma surrounding prostitution further intensifies this stress. This pressure can lead to a loss of motivation, decreased performance in traditional work, and, in severe cases, mental health disorders. Time management, the challenges of dual employment. Time management is another significant challenge for those who combine prostitution with a traditional career. The nature of sex work often involves atypical hours, such as night shifts, which can be difficult to reconcile with standard office schedules. Balancing two jobs demands intense organizational rigor and the ability to compartmentalize different spheres of life. In practice, this often means sacrifices in terms of rest and leisure, thereby increasing the risk of exhaustion and mistakes in both domains. The long hours worked in both roles can also harm physical health, as little time remains for self-care or recuperation. Social relationships, impact on family and friends. Finally, leading a double life in prostitution has a direct impact on social relationships, including with family and friends. To maintain their secret, sex workers often avoid opening up to their loved ones, creating emotional distance and a sense of isolation. Family and friendly relationships can weaken as workers fear rejection or judgment if their situation is revealed. Moreover, the lack of transparency and communication creates tensions that can lead to ruptures, especially when partners or close ones discover the secret activity. This can have devastating effects on trust, sometimes plunging workers into even greater solitude. Solutions and approaches for improvement. To address the identified challenges, several avenues can be considered. Strengthening rights and protection. In countries where prostitution is legalized, strengthening laws to protect the rights of sex workers can help reduce violence and exploitation. This includes workplace safety measures, access to appropriate medical care, and psychological support services. Education and awareness. Promoting better education and awareness about prostitution in society could help reduce stigma and discrimination. By working on public understanding, individuals and communities can better grasp the complexities of this sector and move towards a less critical and more informed vision. Support for those wishing to leave the trade, offering training programs, financial resources, and job opportunities for those seeking to leave prostitution could provide valuable solutions for those in search of alternatives. This would enable these individuals to develop new skills and rebuild their lives in a secure and respectful environment. Informed political debates and inclusive models. Encouraging informed political debates, where all voices, including those of sex workers, human rights experts, and activists, are heard, can help develop inclusive and balanced policies. Decriminalization approaches and more flexible regulatory models could be considered to ensure better protection while respecting individual choices. To conclude this in-depth analysis of prostitution and its impact on society, here are 7 valuable leadership lessons. These insights go beyond the context of prostitution and apply to any leader seeking to develop empathy, understanding, and management of human complexities. One, active listening and empathy above all. Understanding the realities of others requires knowing how to listen with empathy. The diversity of backgrounds and motivations among sex workers reminds us that every individual has a unique story. As leaders, cultivating attentive, non-judgmental listening is essential to understanding the real needs of those we wish to support and guide. Two, the courage to break prejudices. Prostitution is marked by stigmas and prejudices, often linked to moral perceptions. A good leader knows how to challenge these preconceived ideas and stereotypes. Being ready to break prejudices and encourage others to see beyond appearances is a key skill for enlightened and inclusive leadership. Three, stress management and resilience. Emotional and psychological challenges faced in this sector highlight the importance of resilience and stress management. For leaders, this means learning to manage pressure and encouraging others to find healthy ways to maintain their mental well-being in difficult situations. Resilience thus becomes an essential strength to overcome trials and stay committed to one's mission. Encouraging a holistic vision. A leader must be able to see beyond the immediate aspects of a situation and adopt a global perspective. Analyzing prostitution through various angles, economic, social, psychological, teaches us the importance of a holistic approach. This allows for better informed decisions and responses that are more balanced and compassionate. Five, valuing autonomy and respecting choices. Good leadership is built on respecting individual autonomy. Just as discussions on prostitution regulation highlight the importance of respecting choices, an effective leader values the decisions and choices of each team member. This creates an environment of trust and mutual respect, where individuals feel valued for who they are. Six, investing in training and support. Offering opportunities for education, training, and support to those seeking alternatives shows the importance of investing in human potential. Leaders can learn from this that personal development and growth are essential for sustainable success, both at the individual and collective levels. Seven, promoting collaboration and open-mindedness. In political debates and support initiatives, including all voices is essential for balanced solutions. A good leader understands that open-mindedness and collaboration with different perspectives enrich decisions and strengthen actions. This fosters creative and inclusive solutions that consider everyone's needs and aspirations. Conclusion of the lessons. These 7 leadership lessons, drawn from our exploration of prostitution, show us that strong leadership is based on values of respect, understanding, and openness. By cultivating these skills, a leader can inspire others and promote fair and humane solutions in all areas of society. Thank you for accompanying us on this journey of reflection on the complex subject of prostitution. By drawing lessons from our analysis, you too can take a step toward better understanding the social and personal dynamics shaping our society. Remember, adopting an open and non-judgmental perspective while cultivating empathy can profoundly transform your relationships and your way of understanding the world. Whether it's about understanding different life paths, overcoming personal challenges, or strengthening your resilience, these perspectives can enrich your daily life and redefine your vision of leadership and success.